Hello, I am Alon Burstein, visiting assistant professor in the Department of Political Science and Israel Institute Fellow at the University of California, Irvine, here giving you the summary of the last 24 hours of the Israel-Hamas war. So it's currently the eve of October 28, 2023 in the United States, the morning of October 29, 2023 in the Middle East. Starting with the hostage situation, the kidnapped Israelis that are held in the Gaza Strip by Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, is now confirming that it has identified over 230 kidnapped Israelis that are held by these two movements in the Gaza Strip. It is at this time, as I state every day, unconfirmed if these include the 4 hostages that were released already. In addition, the Hamas leader in Gaza, Yahya Sinwar, who I will add is himself released from a previous hostage exchange in 2011, he was released in the Gilad Shalit deal. He stated today in a first statement since the attack on October 7th that Israel should carry out a one-time general deal and release all the Palestinian prisoners in exchange for all the Israeli hostages that are held in the Gaza Strip. His statements were later echoed by Abu Obaida, this is the spokesperson of the Al-Qassam Brigades, Hamas's military wing, who stated, and I quote, "The price for the large number of kidnapped we have is an emptying of all Israeli jails of all prisoners. If Israel wants to deal with this in a one-time go, we are willing. If it wants to divide it up, we are also willing." So what both leaders in the Hamas movement are referring to are Palestinian prisoners that are held in Israeli jails. This relates to roughly 5,000 to 6,000 different Palestinian prisoners, depending on our definitions. Israel did not officially comment. A top official in Israel stated that Hamas is simply using this as psychological warfare and rhetoric, that Hamas is not actually interested in the deal and is just trying to cause dissent in Israeli ranks and create confusion and basically delay Israel's ground invasion. Prime Minister Netanyahu explicitly related to this, stating, "We are debating everything and I will not say more." He also stated that returning all the hostages is one of the main missions for Israel in this war. Qatar, meanwhile, stated that negotiations are continuing despite Israel's ground invasion, however, that they are drastically slowed down as a result of this invasion. Qatar also condemned Israel for its ground invasion and stated that it is carrying out collective punishment and that this invasion will have disastrous consequences for the entire Middle East. Moving on to some of the ongoing fighting in the Gaza Strip. Israel today deepened its invasion into the Gaza Strip, progressing several kilometers or miles, depending where you are, westward. There were reports of extremely intense bombardments throughout the entire Gaza Strip, primarily in the north, but also in the center. And there were reports by reporters on the ground that this was the harshest night in terms of Israeli retaliations and bombardments since the war began. Relating to this, the IDF Chief of Staff today stated that the second phase of the war has begun. It is unclear exactly if he's relating to the initial 3 phases that Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant stated that would be possibly bombarding the Gaza Strip, then taking it over, then some unknown third phase, or something else. Either way, say the second phase has begun, presumably relating to Israel's ground invasion. It also stated that the ground invasion was bolstered by tank units and drones and air support. In addition, his statements were bolstered by Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Gallant, who also himself stated the ground shook tonight in Gaza. During Israel's ground invasion, there were several different reports by Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They were confronting IDF units. Hamas stated it was confronting the IDF in Beit Hanun, which is north of the Gaza Strip, and in El Bureij, which is in the center. And the Palestinian Islamic Jihad also stated that it was confronting the IDF in Beit Lahia in the north, where there was also heavy bombardments reported. Relating to what is actually happening in the Gaza Strip, it is very difficult right now to get reports from the ground because communications and internet access had actually been knocked out 24 hours ago. The IDF did not take any responsibility for doing this. It is unclear if this happened deliberately or if communications towers were in fact knocked out. The fact is, it is very, very hard to find out what is actually going on the ground. The IDF reported that in its ground invasion in the last 24 hours, and the IDF is continuously stating that this is not its major ground invasion, it's more a surgical move, over 150 underground targets, these relate to the metro and Hamas's different tunnels, were attacked. Within the retaliations, it was also reported that the head of Hamas's air attack units, Atzam Abu Rahma, was also assassinated. In addition, the head of the Gaza Brigade's naval forces, who was in charge of a seaborne raid that happened a couple days ago that I reported on, was also assassinated. Relating to those communications in the Gaza Strip, again, they are currently right now down. However, there are reports in literally the last hour that they might be returning slowly, and maybe we'll get more information on what is happening on the ground. For now, we are relying entirely on what Hamas is reporting, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad is reporting, and the IDF is reporting. Relating to the rocket attacks and missiles from the Gaza Strip, there were massive barrages of missiles and rockets today targeting both the south and the center of Israel. Due to the sheer volume of attacks, there were several direct hits, so Iron Dome often intercepts a lot of these missiles and rockets, but the sheer volume resulted in a lot of missiles actually landing. There were direct hits in towns of Ashdod, Tel Aviv, Chulon, Yehud, Rishon LeZion, Yavne, Arara, which is a Bedouin area in the south of the country, Kiryat Ono, and Beersheba. In addition, today, Israel published the reports of an interrogation and a recording of interrogation of some of Hamas's Nukhba fighters. Nukhba are the commando units who were caught on October 7th, and they were confessing and reporting that Hamas leadership is indeed hiding in underground tunnels underneath the Shifa hospital. This is the main hospital in the Gaza Strip, and they reported that the Hamas leadership is hiding in tunnels underneath that hospital as well as other clinics and schools. The incarcerated Hamas prisoners are shown stating, and I quote, "They know that you will not bomb them there." And they are also stating that Hamas has scores of fuel and ammunition that are hidden in these areas. Now, the IDF is likely using this in order to, again, promote this idea that Hamas is the one that is not adhering to humanitarian law as opposed to the IDF. An IDF spokesperson later refused to deny that attacking the Shifa hospital is off the table. Relating to the fuel crisis, again, these prisoners did state that Hamas is holding on to thousands of liters of fuel in their underground tunnels. The New York Times later quoted both Arab and quote-unquote Western sources confirming that Hamas does likely have large caches of fuel. The Palestinian Health Ministry in the Gaza Strip reported, as of a few hours ago, that there are over 8,000 Palestinians that have been killed since the beginning of the war. Of them, over 3,000 are children. In addition, nearly 20,000 have been injured. However, I again state that right now it is very hard to get information out of the Gaza Strip. The World Health Organization and UNICEF have both stated they have lost contact with their people in the Gaza Strip. There are different reports of the Gazan medical facilities that are dispersing ambulances to just different regions of the Gaza Strip because it's impossible to communicate where there are emergencies, so these numbers are likely to vary. Related to that, moving on to some of the humanitarian issues, Elon Musk today stated that he would connect the UN and aid agencies in Gaza to Starlink. So this is the internet service that he has working through satellites. This has been instrumental in the war between Russia and Ukraine. Israel condemned this and stated that they would act against this since this would only be used by Hamas to coordinate their future attacks. In addition, there were reports today that there were over 1,000 trucks carrying food, water, and different medical supplies that are waiting on the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing to cross over. And the IDF reported today that it is preparing to increase its humanitarian aid as its ground invasion accelerates. Moving on to the West Bank, there were ongoing spirals of low-level violence between Palestinians and settlers today. Among these, a Palestinian was shot dead by a settler in the Asawiya area near Nablus. In addition, the IDF reported that 11 Palestinians have been arrested, among these several Hamas members. Moving on to the north of Israel, after a few days where there's been relatively calm, it was a very, very intense day in the north of Israel and southern Lebanon. There were mortars fired, first of all, from Syria towards the Golan Heights. The IDF retaliated with artillery against the Syrian army and against camps of Iranian militias. In addition, Hezbollah today fired rockets from Lebanon. 3 of these hit in the area of Margaliot. There were other rockets that targeted Western Galilee and mortar fires into IDF outposts, and some of these included anti-tank missiles that hit the areas of Misgav. And finally, it was reported that a long-range missile was intercepted by Israel, and that there were unconfirmed reports of Hezbollah attempted infiltrations at various points on the border. The IDF retaliated in several waves against different Hezbollah targets, targeting a range of areas from Rosh Nikra all the way to Hardov. In these retaliations against different Hezbollah targets, it was reported that a UN peacekeeper was injured. In addition, relating to the front between Lebanon and Israel, Salah al-Aruri, so this is one of the top-ranking Hamas members who has been very active in trying to create a front against Israel from Lebanon, is reported to have met today with the Lebanese Speaker of the House, Nabih Berri, and there he stated that all countries need to stop Israeli attacks and work towards a ceasefire. The Speaker of the House in Lebanon later stated that he salutes the Palestinian resistance and that they dealt a heroic defeat against the IDF. Moving on to some of the regional developments today, El Miadan, which is a news outlet that's affiliated with Hezbollah, reported that there were explosions in a U.S. military base in Deir ez-Zor in Syria. So this is part of the ongoing escalation between the United States and different Iranian militias throughout the region. Right now, those reports are unconfirmed. The Pentagon made no comment. Moving on to the political and general trends. Today, there were major demonstrations that occurred in Turkey after Turkish President Erdogan called on all Turkish people to go out and protest what is happening in Gaza. In the main demonstration in Istanbul, Erdogan himself spoke, and he stated that Israel is a war criminal, and again repeated that Hamas is not a terror organization, but rather a freedom-fighting organization. After this, Israel ordered the recall of all its diplomats from Turkey. In addition, the former Israeli ambassador to Italy today stated in an interview that the intent of the war is to, and I quote, destroy Gaza. This caused substantial backlash, as many Israeli diplomats stated that he is not speaking for Israel, and that is not Israel's intent in the war. Nonetheless, that is what he stated. In addition, Mahmoud Abbas, the chairman of the Palestinian Authority and the leader of the PLO, today in a convening of the Palestinian Authority in Ramallah, called for a convening of the Arab League and stated that he aspires for a diplomatic solution based upon UN Security Council and international resolutions. This is very important because this relates to the possible future of the Gaza Strip and some speculations that possibly Israel or the United States would try to reinstate the Palestinian Authority in that territory. In addition, the Committee to Protect Journalists today reported that nearly 30 journalists, 24 Palestinians, 4 Israelis, and 1 Lebanese have been killed since the war began 3 weeks ago, and they added that this has been the deadliest week for reporters covering conflict zones since that organization was established in 1992. And finally, today in a press conference, Prime Minister Netanyahu, along with Defense Minister Gallant and Minister Gantz, stated that they are presenting a united front in all the cabinets, and that they are all united in their decisions towards the invasion and the future of the Gaza Strip. This is important because there have been a lot of speculations and a lot of rumors about divisions within the Israeli cabinet. This press conference, according to different reports, was unconvincing, and there's still very apparent divisions regarding if Israel should carry out a full-scale invasion or surgical invasions, or what exactly will happen. However, they are at least trying to present the united front as of now. That is my report for the last 24 hours. I'll be back tomorrow.